You guys got to be worn out. I mean, I walk in here, I figure out what I've gotten myself into. I mean, you got Bill George and Tim Sanders and Henry Cloud. Oh my gosh. Erwin McManus. I feel like a wiener in a steakhouse. Man, oh man. Wow. Well, we started our little business after I went broke. Started with nothing, what he said, and most people start with nothing. And I made a bunch of money in the real estate business, and I had about $4 million worth by the time I was 26, but I borrowed too much money, and then I lost it all. That's a quick story. And I was bankrupt, and at the bottom of that mess, I decided I was going to figure out how money really works. And as a baby Christian, I picked up the Bible and found out it had something to say about money, and that was a trip. Because it's devastatingly easy to understand and hard to do. It's real deep concepts like get out of debt. All right, I'm through. Now, that's the whole thing. I mean, it's really simple things to understand, but they're hard to do because we have to modify the person in the mirror. The problem with my money is this guy I shave with. If I can get this guy in my mirror to behave, he can be skinny and rich. So we first started ministering at our church, counseling, pastor would call up and go, well, you went through foreclosure, meet with these people, they're in foreclosure. And I'm like, well, does that mean I'm supposed to, so we would sit down and counsel them, and then we started teaching a little class, had about 15 people in it. When I finished teaching, there was about 300 in there, and started talking about God's ways of handling money. Reading people like Larry Burkett and Ron Blue and some wonderful men around the world that have taught biblical finance for years, and I just kind of integrated my weird style into it. And turned out there was a lot of folks hurting and needed that help. Me and Jenny Craig, we got a big job. And so we started our little business and, on a card table in our living room and worked our tail ends off for the last 17 years, and now we're an overnight success. The process of doing that, I'm, become a student of people like John Maxwell and Jim Collins and a lot of these speakers up here, Patrick, Lencioni, wow. I mean, these guys, you read their books, you learn stuff from them. It's amazing. I mean, you study these men, they really have big brains. It's something else. And then little old me, I'm stumbling along from Antioch, Tennessee, trying to figure out how to run a business and how to treat people. Because one of the things when you go broke, if you're a believer, if you've ever been there, you know what I'm talking about. I really did hit bottom so hard it was a splat. A guy asked me the other day, he said, how'd you bounce back? And I said, dude, when you fall that far, you don't bounce. It's just, and so I waved the white flag. I said, that's it, God. That I Surrender All song, I'm in it. I'm not going to run a business except your way. As best I can figure out from Scripture, I'm going to figure out how to run my business that way. Now, it's hard because they don't cover insurance issues and second hesitations, So, but as best I can figure out on how to treat people and how to raise an organization up, I'm going to treat people that way, where Jesus is honored in the marketplace. And that's what we've gone about doing for the last several years. We've made a lot of mistakes, and that's what I want to cover with you this morning. But one of the things, this afternoon, one of the things I've figured out is if you just keep going and learn every time you do something stupid, you get better. You're just not quite as ugly as you were last year. You get a little better. And for the last 3 years, our little organization, we've only got like 254 people working for us this month, and it's growing pretty quick. We're hiring like 26 right now, but we're not Fortune 500 like some of these guys up here. We're just a little old small business thing. But every year we win the best place to work in Nashville, Tennessee. We win the award. It's given out. And people are, we have thousands, hundreds of resumes coming in every month because people want to be on our team because word got out that we treat people right. You want to attract talent into your organization. Just treat them right. And so I was trying, as we're growing, I wanted to figure out how to instill these things that I've learned the hard way about leadership and running our business God's way into our team and into a young team. I got a young team. Average age in the place is about 27 years old. Looks like a .com around there. It's all flip-flops and T-shirts. And they're smart, too. They don't miss it. They don't miss anything. They see everything. And if, as I'm growing these young leaders, how am I going to do that? And so when in doubt, a teacher teaches. And so I started teaching a class. We called it Entree Leadership. It's a combination of entrepreneurism and leadership. I didn't want to teach leadership. That was too textbooky. And I didn't want a bunch of entrepreneurs. Oh, my gosh, ADD on steroids. I mean, oh, man, no. That is out. So I wanted but I wanted the spirit and the passion of the entrepreneur, and I wanted the polish and the servanthood of leadership. And so we put it together, and we called it Entree Leadership. And this is one of the lessons out of that I want to talk to you guys about today. There's a negative story in the Bible. There's a few of them, especially like over here where I am in the Old Testament. There's a few times people get thumped in there, you know. And then some of you have heard the story. Any of you ever heard the story of the Tower of Babel? 3 of you. Good. Well, the story goes something like this. The sons of Noah, after the flood, got together and they decided they were pretty cool and they were going to build a great big building, a tower. And it was a magnificent structure, and they began to worship the structure rather than God. And I won't get into all the theology. I'm not sure I understand all of it. But I actually found a positive kernel in here that I want to unpack because I think it's really important. It comes down here in 11:5 in Genesis. It says, "But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, Indeed, the people are one, and have one language. And what they begin to do now, what they set out to do now, nothing will stop them." And so he confused their languages, and you know the rest of the part of the negative story. But there's a positive kernel right there in the middle of it. Indeed, the people are one, and now nothing that they do, because of their oneness, will be withheld from them. That's a pretty powerful big statement. So I got this weird idea that we're going to reshape the landscape of how money is handled in this country with our little company. That's a Jim Collins thing, you know, big, hairy, audacious goal, a BHAG. Built to Last is the book if you hadn't read it. And you've read the second one, Good to Great. You know you've read that. If you hadn't, you need to. Those are both must-reads in leadership. But Collins says set a big, hairy, audacious goal. So I kind of want to just totally reshape the landscape with God's ways of handling money, because I figure if Americans start handling God's ways of handling money, we won't have recessions. It's kind of a weird concept, but I think it'll work. And so I'm kind of real quietly and not so quietly going about the business of invading places like Good Morning America and Fox and Friends and Larry King on a pretty regular basis, and just totally messing with their minds by saying things that are completely outside of what normal people say. And I think they bring me on because they just don't know where I'm going next. It's the entertainment value, I guess, if you will. But it's all it is I'm just bringing up stuff that's called common sense, and Benjamin Franklin said nothing is less common. Turns out common sense is marketable. We've turned it into a multi-million-dollar organization. And so in the process of teaching our people, we think that our team, I want my team to really believe that nothing that we set our minds to, if we're unified, can be withheld from us. Your church, there's nothing that'll be withheld. I mean, the impact your church can have on your community, your denomination can have on your state, your district, the impact that it can have, the impact a college can have, the impact a business can have, nothing will be withheld from a group that are unified. But almost no one is. This country's split about 6 ways. Everybody tries to put a label on it and put you in a pigeonhole, try to figure out you're one of those. You're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're a socialist, you're a capitalist. You're a Limbaugh follower. They're slicing it, aren't they? You got to figure out where do you fall? Where do you fall? Well, just about the time you figure it out, I'm going to change. So, because that's what Jesus did as I follow him. He wasn't really easy to pigeonhole, except he was always figuring out a way to help people and create unity in the process. If you'll create unity inside your organization, if we can create unity inside this country, and to the extent we do again, we're going to create things again. Nothing will be withheld from us. But you really can't control the whole country, and neither can I. But I can do my part with my little 254 people. I can do my part with my little 5-member household. The Ramseys are unified. There's some things that you don't do when you're a Ramsey. It's been real clearly laid out to my kids. I can make another one looks just like you. There's some things you don't do, you know? I asked my daughter the other day why our kids were so good, and she said, because our mama loved us and we're scared of my daddy. Well, they know their daddy loves them, but it's good to have a little fear of the daddy. It's a good formula, you know, in a healthy kind of way, not like I'm crazy or something, but I mean, they need to, you know, and their boyfriends need to be scared too. You know? It's a good thing, you know? It's a good thing. One of them said, boy, Daddy, all the boys over at the youth group are scared of you. And I said, good. Keeps away two things we don't want around here, jerks and wimps. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. We create unity when we have a shared purpose, when we have some of these things. There's 5 enemies we're going to look at today that are the enemies of unity, and we figured them out at our place the hard way. Every one of these were something we were goofing up and we fixed. So this isn't some kind of like textbook theory thingy. This is something that the Ramsey organization was messing up, and we changed it. And we got better as soon as we did. And if I find out there's another one, I'll come back and tell you that one later, because I'm sure there is another one. I'm sure it's not just 5, right? But so far, I found 5 the hard way. And I want to unpack those for you. Because see, what you need to remember is very few organizations ever experience real unity. And if you can get your organization to experience real unity, nothing will be withheld from it. Let's keep going back to that, because that's a pretty bold, radical, and impactful statement. This little clip reminds me how important it is to stick together, because there's a war out there. There's enemies, and there's people you got to watch for. And if you don't stick together, it gets bad.
The Father should have told you our failings. We fight as a single, impenetrable unit. That is the source of our strength. Each Spartan that takes the man to his left shall die for the neck with his shield. A single weak spot, and the phalanx shatters.
No weak spots. There's 5 enemies of unity: poor communication, gossip, unresolved disagreements, a lack of a shared purpose, and sanctified incompetence, a phrase I stole from John Maxwell. Let's look at the first one. Poor communication. Now, Patrick talked to us this morning, and I got to see most of that. It was incredible about how to have quality communication, how to have everybody on the same page, and I don't know how to do that totally. I do know that email is a poor form of communication, especially if you have a temper. Or you don't know email etiquette, and you don't know that all caps means you're yelling at somebody, fool, you know? So you got to think about quality levels of communication. How am I going to interact inside my organization, this organism, to create quality communication? Well, last thing I wanted was corporate America. Now, some of you, that makes you mad. I'm sorry, but I got a whole bunch of people working for me that didn't want to work for corporate America anymore, so I didn't want to recreate that kind of forms of communication. But I did want to have our team talking in different ways. And we've got all these different things, high school curriculum. You know, we've got live events that we do every year with about 100,000 people a year coming through these arena events that we do. We've got all this broadcast stuff we're doing. We got this class that's in Spanish. It's in the military. It's, you know, we've got all these segments of 9 million different things going on in our little building. And the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. You know what I'm talking about? And really, what happened then was just tremendous strife. Because there was jealousy, we got turf wars going, because they weren't on the same page because they weren't communicating. And so we stopped that by doing several things. One is we do have very intentional meetings. And we do have the dreaded staff meeting. But our team got to where we wanted to have a staff meeting. Now, staff meeting at our place is each individual department stands up and says what's going on that the other departments will need to know about. Hello. You need to know this is going on to figure out how your deal graphs into what we're doing. Otherwise, we become a bunch of silos stacked together, and the walls are really thick. And so it would be a great plan if we were all on the same page with what we were doing as such and such a department's moving. The church department's launching this Financial Peace University, and they got a big deal happening over here. Well, it's a good idea for the guys over in curriculum to know that, because that particular denomination happened to have 6 high schools. And so we need to be on the same page. We need to have lots and lots of quality communication. We do reports, but we don't do your normal reports. Reports are interesting at our place. You turn in a weekly report, and you put at the top of the page what I'm paying you, and then you put on the rest of the page why I'm happy about that. Well, I mean, if you're going to put out some money, we need to get a little effort. I got this weird idea, while you're at work, you ought to work, And so what is it that you're doing this week that makes you happy, that when you look up at Jesus and Jesus looks down at you and he says, good job, proud of that one this week? What are you doing that's productive? Because unproductive people aren't creative, they aren't passionate, they're not a member of a crusade, they smell bad. Nobody wants to hang around them. And so put it down, what's happening there. And we let you, unless you're in a department where like we've got 60 people doing one thing, then that all is one form report and you got a place for comments. But if you're the only person that does what you do, or one of 2 or 3 people that does what you do, you just make up your form. As creative as you want, and put a high and a low on there. Something cool that happened this week and something that isn't cool that happened this week. Now, I'm so dumb that I thought when I announced that that's what we were going to do, put a high and a low on there, I thought that meant you were going to put something that had to do with our business and you working here that was a high and a low. But I didn't remember I had 27-year-olds in the place. So I get in there, I broke up with my boyfriend. My dog was lost for 3 hours last night. I was so scared, and Jesus answered my prayers. This is what's on the highs. But it's a good thing, because as I can walk by then, I'll walk by and talk to that person. Did you get, fluffy offense yet? And you can, you know what's going on inside the organization, right? There's communication. I didn't have any idea it was going to be that pastoral, but that's good. It's all good. The whole thing is we're creating communication lots and lots of different ways. We're always looking for a creative way to do it. This broadcast email thing, it's good to set up a meeting, but we really need to get inside each other's heads and hearts. Communication needs to lock. And if you don't have communication, quality communication, early and often, you're going to have a unity problem. This is my favorite. Gossip. Gossip is degrading and will destroy an organization. A successful leader develops and maintains a culture in which negatives are handed up and positives are handed down by our definition at our place. Otherwise, you're gossip. And I have got a zero tolerance policy for gossip. If you gossip, I actually have a one-time policy, one strike. I'll talk to you once. And after that, I'm just going to fire your butt. Leave the building. I have no time for this kind of person. You will adjust yourself spiritually somewhere else. We're not a church. Get out of here. All right? I'm sorry if that sounds mean and all that, but I look Christian up. It doesn't mean doormat, and it doesn't mean tolerating a bunch of people misbehaving. And we tell you this coming in, and we don't want you to live in fear, except enough fear that you don't gossip. Because this is what's going to happen. I'm just not going to put up with it. Now, that sounds very dictatorial, and I'm being kind of smart aleck on the stage, but we really are that way at our place. And the weird thing is, our team says that is the number one thing that causes us to be the favorite place to work. Because everywhere else, it's nye, 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 nye. The boss walks out of the room. The guy who's paying you, feeding your kids, causing your mortgage to be paid, walks out of the room, and you start nye, 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 and tearing him down. You ought to have your tail kicked. That disloyalty, stupid stuff. Really, is this too plain for y'all? Okay, I'm sorry, but this is just the way it is, right? It's just ridiculous. I'm giving somebody my money and giving them an opportunity to go win in a business that's changing people's lives all across America, and all you got to say is something negative to the secretary about it. Get out of here. Really. It's just crazy. So I've corrected a couple of brothers, because it's usually the brothers. Everybody talks about the women being gossips. Men are the world's worst. So, I can extend this into the business side of the church too, because I'm a leader in my church, and I've been on the church board and been through all that stuff too. And One of the biggest gossips I ever met worked in the church office. Ran the prayer list, you know. Just, hey, I'm a part of the body. I love Jesus. I love the church. But, you know, this is stuff, you can't go in there and talk about anything because it'll be all over the place. You know, there is no sanctification of this process. And so, you know, you've got to call people out on that. Because, you know, when I read in here, you know, in the church, we will absolutely fry you for being an adulterer. Right? You sleep around on your spouse, it's like, that's it, right? But in the same list is a gossip. It's the same list. Right there in Galatians, you can look it up. But I don't know how we got all twisted. We're worried about this one and we're not worried about that one. So it's a big deal because it absolutely destroys an organization. It's impossible to have unity when everybody's talking about everybody else. If he just keeps stopping. So our deal is this. If you have a negative, and you will have a negative once you've been there more than 10 minutes. The honeymoon's over pretty quick around our place. We get with it. I mean, we are running wide open. We are trying to catch a tidal wave with a teacup. You stand still in our place, there's going to be boot prints up your back if you stand still in our place. One lady, she quit one day, and she didn't even come in to quit. She just left a voicemail. She said, going to work for you people is like going up to a water fountain to get a drink. Somebody turns on a fire hose. We're busting it, man. We got stuff to do. There's too many single moms out there. 52% of the single moms live below the poverty level. I got too much to do. Put up with your little okay? We got stuff to do. There's people hurting. You know, we got things to happen here. We're on a crusade. Don't do this stuff. And so, you know, if you have a problem, and that means you've been with us 11 minutes or so, if you have a problem of frustration, it's perfectly okay. We will not beat you up for having a problem, especially if it's a legitimate problem. But here's the deal. Hand it up. Get in my office. Get in one of the VPs, one of the executive VPs. The secretary, our receptionist, her title is Director of First Impressions. And don't go to the Director of First Impressions. Sit down in the lobby of our office and sit and tell her how your computer's broken and nobody will allocate the budget to fix your computer. She doesn't fix computers. She doesn't have a budget, and I'll fire you. Don't do that. Is this hard? Hand your negative. You may have a legitimate problem with your computer. You may have a legitimate gripe with your boss who's being a jerk to you. I got all that. Bring it in. We'll sit down. We'll talk about it. And there's a possible answer or two. One is we'll fix the problem. Two is we're going to look at you and tell you to get over your drama queen self. Okay? But we'll talk about it. We're going to put it all out there on the table, and we're all going to get closure on your little issue, and then we're going to move on with the stuff we got to do. But hand your negatives up. If you hand them down, that by definition is gossip, and I'll call you out on it fast. And our team will tell you, we're not mean about it, but let me tell you what happens. It virally invades the culture of the organization. And our team, not out of fear of me, but because they love the atmosphere where this stuff isn't in the air, they'll protect it. Somebody will start that and they go, listen, you may have done that where you worked before, but we don't do that here. They correct it right there. They stop them right there. There's an instant reprimand in a very sweet tone, and if it keeps going, they'll go, listen, I don't want to be standing near you when Dave discovers that, you know? And that, you know, it's a wonderful process. It becomes self-policing, if you will. By definition, gossip is when a negative is discussed with anyone who can't solve the problem. And people are going to bring you problems. I always remember Steve Brown, a great motivator, great teacher about problems. He says, you know, as a leader, people bring problems into your office. And I always remember that that problem looks like a monkey standing on your shoulder. And when they come in, they say, we've got a problem. Ever do that, leaders? We've got a problem. When they say that, that monkey just jumped off their shoulder in the middle of your desk. Your job as a leader is for them to fix the problem. That means when they leave, they need to take their monkey with them. Otherwise, you'll be running a zoo. So come in my office with problems, but here's a good idea. You want to lead someday? Bring some solutions and a suggestion. I'm going to send your monkey out with you. He's going to be on a leash, and you're a future killer at our place. That's the way we look. That's who we look for. We look for people who get stuff done, who know how to get up, leave the cave, kill something, and drag it home. Unresolved disagreements. This will destroy an organization. I got my feelings hurt. Well, everybody gets their feelings hurt. I get mine hurt sometimes. Sometimes we're insulted. Sometimes someone didn't consider your situation. And sometimes, a lot of times it's very legitimate, and you as a leader have to sit down and help them resolve that. Now, this starts to sound a little bit like you're running a beauty parlor after a while. But you really are, in a sense, because there's people involved. And if you love people well and you help them learn to resolve their disagreements, usually they'll get to the point, some of them they learn some new relational skills in the process, and they'll get to the point they can actually start to resolve their own disagreements. I remember one of my VPs was flipping through the weekly reports, and the low on this young lady's report, she was 30 years old, working for us, the low on her report was, "I don't like it when people talk down to me in other departments." Now, when I first read that, I kind of went, well, that was my first reaction. I have to admit, that wasn't a good leadership reaction. That wasn't a servant leader. But I kind of went, oh, get over yourself. And then I read it again, and I thought, you know what this is? This isn't, I don't like it when people talk down to me. This is, something happened, and I don't have the relational maturity to deal with it. Would you help me? That's what she really said, didn't she? Would someone else walk into this situation and help me? Well, before I even got to it, my leadership team, which is absolutely incredible, they do this stuff in their sleep, man. It's just natural. It's such part of our operating principles and core values. My executive VP had already pulled her in. She was pregnant, and her feelings were hurt. And what it was, there was another lady that was like 57 years old that worked for us, who's kind of a mother figure and is a little bit short sometimes. She's a little rough, kind of like me. And she walked in one day, and this little girl had not done it, and she kind of snapped at her, just do this, do this, do this, and turned around and walked out. She just kind of got to the point and didn't, well, there's a 57-year-old woman and a pregnant woman. There's probably some chemistry involved in this problem. It could happen. I don't know. Something to be considered. But anyway, the neat thing was, he brought them both in, learned what the problem was, sat down with the other lady, brought her in, explained to her what had happened, and she was aghast that she had hurt her. She actually didn't intend to hurt her. She was just getting to the point, different personality styles, and kind of barked a little bit, was probably a little too short. And the neat thing was, they actually sat there and cried together and prayed together. And the fun thing is, the lady that was pregnant no longer works with us. She left, and when she had her baby, she stayed home to be with the baby. And this older lady is such good friends with her now that she's now mentoring her on how to be a mom and a wife. What a spiritual implication of a business operating God's way, where we stop and create reconciliation, we create oneness, we create unity, and we resolve these disputes. Now, this may be small time for some of you guys, but this is just what we do. A little confrontation, by the way, goes a long way in these situations, because it cleanses the wound and allows the party to go forth in a spirit of unity. When you're aware that there are hurt feelings or disagreements, act quickly and decisively. And I'll speak just a second to you pastors, because I love y'all, and a lot of y'all are my friends across the nation, and you're shepherds, and you have big, gentle, wonderful hearts. And bluntly, sometimes you don't deal with this stuff well. And you need to love people enough to get in the middle of it and push them a little bit on it. You need to coach them along. Be their coach a little bit, and a little less everything's okay. Now, some of you are good at it, and I'm not throwing a blanket over everybody, but I've got a lot of friends that are pastors that are just sweet, wonderful men. And the idea of dealing with this kind of conflict it's hard for them. So push yourself outside your comfort zone if you want to lead well, and make sure these wounds are cleansed. Around our place, the way I was in here this morning when these men were up here talking about having someone has to leave the organization because of ethics problems or because of performance issues. And sometimes that happens, and the first time or two somebody had to leave our organization, man, my guts were just inside out. This is one of the hardest things I've ever done, is to to fire somebody. I've been fired. Man, that was so hard. But then I started, after a while, running the thing for years now, I'm actually getting a lot better, because I realized that you can not work for us and still go to heaven. So it's probably going to be okay. We're not a cult, you know? And you can probably not work for us and even prosper somewhere else. As a matter of fact, if you weren't supposed to be on the bus, as Jim Collins says, and we help you get onto a different bus, we may see you sprout wings. Jesus may have had a different plan for your life, and I might have been interrupting it, and I have seen that several times, where I've set someone free, and I really was setting them free. And so that made it easier, but that's a form of conflict, isn't it? That's a form of getting up in the face of a situation. Man, that's tough stuff. It's a real thing, and I'm all torn up about it. And so I learned long ago, if I have to do that some days, and if somebody's been with us a long time nowadays, or if it's somebody that we've worked with, or there's a high propensity for emotion or something, I'll get involved in those situations still to this day, because I owe those people that. They've been here for 6 years. I owe them being in that meeting when they have to leave. And I don't want to do it. I hate doing it. And so if you're leaving our organization, it's going to happen before noon, because I'm not going on the air at 1 o'clock with all this junk inside of me. I'm going to get it over with. And so there's kind of a joke runs through our place. If you make it till noon, you're going to make it another day. And these disagreements are the same way, aren't they? Some of us, my wife doesn't do conflict. It's taken her 27 years of marriage to get where she's pretty good at conflict with me. But she just still, she would just as soon do the avoidance technique, the flee technique, rather than, conflict is like a gift. It's a spiritual gift for me. So, well, I'm a talk radio host. What do you want? That's it, all right? But she doesn't do conflict. And so we've found that there are people like that inside of our organization who are quality leaders, but they struggle with this. It's outside their comfort zone. So I teach them the same thing. Just go in there first thing, as soon as you find it, no hesitation. Jump in the middle of it, listen, gather information about what's going on in the disagreement, and solve it. Don't let it fester. Don't let the wound stay open. It'll get infected. People will have problems right then. And it can be something like I was coaching my son's ice hockey team. And I got two of the parents over here. At the beginning of the year when I was coaching the teams, I always told them, I said, listen, I promise I will not talk about you like you're dirt in the locker room if you won't talk about the coach like he's dirt all the way home after the game. We're on the same team here. This is a voluntary thing. I'm doing this to play with my kid and have fun. And if you want to turn this into a big deal, you can run it or cut my salary in half, okay? But we're all going to work together and have these parents' meetings. It worked pretty good, but one year I had this one dad who just wouldn't shut up, and he was always going on. So finally I just jumped in the middle of it. Look, we got to deal with this. And my wife is like, so it even works on a hockey team with the parents. And he and I are buddies to this day, but I dealt with it. He's a Christian, and he was like, well, Dave Ramsey this, Dave Ramsey. I said, listen, dude, don't be saying, come over here. Read Matthew. You and me first. We talk about this. And let's, and if you got a problem with me and you don't want to like me, that's cool. I can handle that. But let's deal with the idea that these kids are first. And it changed the whole relationship. And we're friends to this day, and we probably will be for life because I dealt with it right then. It can work in something as simple as coaching an ice hockey team. Lack of shared purpose. One of the other enemies of unity. And I'm amazed at how hard this is. We have a mission statement in our organization, and I'm convinced we spent a lot of time in prayer 15 years ago putting this mission statement together, and I am firmly convinced. There's a lot of things around our place we do, and I think it might be God. I'll know later. There's some things I'm sure it is, and there's some things I know later it was last night's pizza. It was not the Holy Spirit. Y'all, those of you that can hear perfectly every time, you scare me. But, I'm listening and I'm trying, but sometimes I get all caught up in ego and everything else, and I don't know what is always God. So, but this one is God. And I know it's God because the mission statement stands to this day, and it still outlines perfectly what our organization does. And it's so strong, in fact, that we make our team members memorize it as they come on board, because that's the first step in creating a shared purpose. The Lampo Group, which is our organization, Greek for the light in Matthew 5:15, don't hide your light under a bushel. The Lampo Group provides biblically based, common sense education and empowerment, which gives hope, italicized and capitalized, to everyone from the financially secure to the financially distressed. If it doesn't do that, we don't do it. And you have to memorize it. It's so bad that some of the girls that were new on the team, they were going to make fun of me, so they got up, kind of did a little cheer when they did their memorization, but it's okay. Make fun of me, it's all good, but get it in your soul, because it is who we are. And to the extent that's not something you want to sell out for, fly and be free. This is what we're doing. You want to build apartments? That's great. Go build apartments. We're not doing that. We give hope using biblically based common sense education to everyone from the financially secure to the financially distressed. If it doesn't do that, I'm not signing on. Hadn't got time to fool with it. That's our deal, over and over and over and over again. But it's amazing to me. My friend Andy Stanley says you have to give a vision message 21 times before people hear it. I know in advertising we find this. In talk radio, we know that those of you listen to our talk radio stations, that you have to hear the ad 27 times before you hear it. But if you do it enough times, eventually it sinks in and it becomes part of their psyche. Things go better with Coke. Not in 30 years. And you can still finish that slogan. Isn't that amazing? A vision that is cast and drilled in, whether it's an advertising slogan or something that matters, can rock your world. So you got to say it over and over and over and over again. About the time your old guys get really sick of hearing the story, you got it. About then, some people are starting to hear it, and they're catching on. And where there is no vision, the people perish. That's not the scripture we use to build a building. It's a fact, okay? Where there is no vision, the people perish. We all have to have a vision. We have to buy into it, or the organization starts to dry up like a raisin in the sun. It has to have blood flowing through it. It's got to have stuff and things happening. There's got to be some sweat and things flying around. And none of that works if they're going 63 different directions. What about a football team that lines up and everybody doesn't know what they're supposed to do? Football's a real simple sport, isn't it? You take this ball, you put it across that line, you score points. So even the lineman, even the 300-pounder who jumps this high and taps the ball and comes up and he gets a birthday gift right here, has never caught an interception in 32 years in the NFL. Even him, when he catches the ball, he goes, I know what I got to do, cross that line. Everybody around him knows what they got to do. Help George across the line. Block for George. We got a shared purpose. Everybody knows. That's the line, ball to the line. That's simple. You got to say it over and over and over and over again. Those guys have been doing that since they were in Pee Wee League, right? And it's drilled into their psyche. No matter where the ball goes, no matter where it lands, if I can pick the line, ball over the line. Every time, shared purpose, shared purpose, shared purpose. What are we doing to advance the ball that way towards the line? What are we doing to make that happen? It has been said that sanctioned incompetence demoralizes. Said by, as I said earlier, John Maxwell. I love that phrase because, see, I've always been straight commissioner and entrepreneur all my life. I never had a real job where somebody just paid me money just to work. I've always had to kill it and drag it home, and I grew up in a household that way. So it is my psyche, and so that the Bible says the anointing drops from the beard. So that concept flows through our whole organization. It's very entrepreneurial, very self-reliant, very get-it-done kind of thing. QBQ by John Miller, the awesome book on personal responsibility. It is your fault. Fix it. You know, don't blame somebody else. Turns out McDonald's does serve hot coffee. You know, it's that kind of stuff, right? Fix it. It's your fault. If you walk through our parking lot, there's paper in the parking lot, pick it up. You know, this isn't hard. If you don't, somebody else has got to, and if enough of you don't, I got to hire somebody that's his only job. Hello, this isn't hard. Pick it up. I set up chairs, I unload boxes, I'm not above any of it. Whatever we got to do to get it done, we get it done, that kind of a thing. So we don't sanction incompetence, because if you have somebody inside your organization that can't get it done, the other people are demoralized by you looking over them. When you let that stuff go on, you zap the energy out of your organization. All that passion, all that creativity goes, well, George doesn't work. Hell, he does all day long surf the internet. Henry doesn't, Henry comes in late. And you cannot let that go on. Now, there's only one time you can let it go on. And we've got a rule at our place. We do not shoot our wounded. One of my guys came in my office last week, and I sat with him and cried with him and prayed with him. He's been with me for 11 years. And his wife's crawled up in the bottle, and she's not getting out. And it doesn't look like the marriage is going to make it. They've been through 16 counselors, and we've paid for some of it. I'm willing to pay for her treatment. I'll help them any way I can, but I don't know if this one's going to make it. And I just sat there and cried with him. Well, that's one of my guys, you know. And like I told him, dude, you're not going to be on your A game while you're in the middle of this. So I got your back. And some of your team's got your back. And so, when somebody's going through a divorce, they're basically not there, right? So you don't shoot them while they're wounded. That's not what I'm talking about. So our guys know, because it is a core value that we do not sanction incompetence, it's none of your business what's going on with this person over here, but if they're running on 2 cylinders instead of 8, and our guys are, and leadership's letting them get away with it, they must be a real reason, because that's called grace. Otherwise, they're going to be leaving the building pretty quick because we deal with it. We're going to sit down and talk to you. You know, you're not performing here. This is not working. You know, the average person in your area makes 68 marketing calls a week. You made 6. You are not, you're going to have skinny kids. This is not going to work, right? And we just talk to them, you know, just communicate with them, right? Talk to them, but this is not, you know, what's wrong with your activity, son? Dial the phone. This is what you're doing. You dial for dollars, baby. Do it. You know, it's not any harder than that. Well, I get call reluctance. I can see you got call reluctance. I can see that, but let's deal with it. But if they don't have a problem and you continue to sanction it, I know the one I remember the most is hilarious. We have a customer care center, we call it, which is an 800 call center. People call in with everything from suicides to wanting to know what advertiser ran so they can get their term insurance to wanting to know how they can get a book or a ticket to one of our events. They call in. We take 15, 25,000, depending on the volume of the month, incoming call, 800 calls a month in that little group of people there. And we hired a young guy in there, and they sell. You know, they sell a book. If you call, we'll sell you a total money makeover book or that kind of thing. And so we do track their sales, and they are on commission and bonuses, but we also want them to have a ministry heart when they're in there because we never know what's coming in on that line. It's everything from a prayer line to I just want a ticket. You know, and so we got to work all sides of it. It's got to be a special person in there. So we're working that. We get this young guy in there, man. This little guy's a stud. I mean, you know, he does like almost double in the first month in volume what anybody has ever done in that room before. He is knocking it out of the park. This guy is a superstar salesman. 26 years old. His name was Wes. Wes was sharp. I mean, you listen to him. I went in and I thought maybe he's buzzing these people off. Maybe he's not listening. Maybe he's being too much pressure. I don't want somebody twisting somebody's arm. I want them to love them into buying. Just serve them. If you just help enough people, you don't have to worry about money. You know, just go in there and serve them. And I sat down, man, this guy, he was just good. He was quick. He got to the heart. No all this ancillary stuff, but he made the sale. He made a connection, made a relationship. I was proud of him. I listened to his calls because I couldn't believe the call reports. I saw these numbers coming out. This is crazy. Well, he looked up one morning, and he's coming in about 9:30. Well, we start at 8:30. And that's not like optional. It's not based on your production. We start at 8:30. Now, some places have optional. I get that. I mean, Best Buy has this thing where people just kind of come when they want to. I don't know how that works, but apparently it is, I guess. But it doesn't work for us. We're old school people, and we're there at 8:30. And, you know, we've changed it a little bit. We got some that come in at 7:30 and some that do. But he's just wandering in late. We're like, Wes, you can't do that. So he wanders in. He's about 10 minutes late again. Manager sat down with him in the call center, wanders in late again. Over 3 or 4 weeks, the guy hadn't made it to work but twice on time. But he's burning the room up. Still, I mean, he's working about 3/4 the time everybody else is, and he's killing it. And he thinks he's going to get away with it because he's a star. So I said, this guy's a star. I'm going to try to help save him. Let's pull him in. And I got in there with him. I said, listen, look at me, kid. Look right here. You got everything it takes to take this thing over the top. This is just the start of your career here. But you have a character flaw. You think you are better than you are. Before you were born, I was doing your stuff. Okay? Now here's the deal, Bubba. Step up and be here. You need to be here at 8:25 because you owe me. Like for 10 years, if you do 8:25, we'll be about even. Because you come drag button in here about 2 hours late, this stuff stops. This is it. Do not come late again. I thought, well, that's pretty plain, right? Most people can hear that. You should have been able to communicate at that level. That's exactly what I said to him. 3 days later, I look up. Here he comes in again, 20 minutes late. And so okay, come here. Here's our formal write-up. If you come in late again, you don't work here anymore. This is your formal little thing because I don't want anybody to have any confusion. If you leave this place, I want you to know exactly why you leave. And he goes, okay, I get it. If I come in late again, I don't work here. And I said, let me try it this way, all right? Here's the thing. If you're late to work again, bring a box. And he said, what? And I said, you don't need a box to carry your stuff from your desk. So if you're going to be late again, just bring a box. You got that? Yeah, got it. Well, it went pretty good. I looked up about 3 weeks later, though. Here he comes through the parking lot carrying his box. At least he got that part of it. Sent him home. Bless his heart. He's a star somewhere else now, I guess. Because you know what? All those other people in there that are doing what they're supposed to be doing, if I put up with Mr. Prima Donna, I'm going to destroy that. It'll bleed out of that department and run its vein all through the veins of the whole organization. And all of a sudden, I got a whole organization of prima donnas on my hand. Well, I do this, so I get to do that. I mean, I don't want it. No. We're supposed to be serving. My friend Rabbi Daniel Lappin wrote the wonderful book, Thou Shalt Prosper, which you ought to read. He's an Orthodox Jewish rabbi. It's a study on why Jewish people have prospered. And he says, God's people have prospered because if you are walking with God, you understand that your Heavenly Father is smiling when you become obsessively, compulsively preoccupied with the needs of others. That's a great line. If you help enough people, you don't have to worry about money. Serve in the marketplace, and you can take chunks of the marketplace back for Christ. Big chunks. You know, they say, well, how do you get away with talking about Jesus on secular talk radio? Because I got really high ratings, and I make them a lot of money. It's excellence, baby. Excellence takes back the marketplace. Don't go in there and put a cross over it and half butt do it. You know, kick it, man. Kick it. Kick it, right? Put a fish on the back of it, drive it right? Team members will eventually become demotivated when someone else on the team can't or won't do the job and the leader won't take action. See, what ultimately we're talking about here is you lost your ability to lead because of your inaction. People don't respect you anymore. It's not because of fear. It's because they don't think you're going to act. And one thing servant leadership is always required is to execute justice. Justice has to be part of the program. Compassion and justice and grace, the character qualities of Christ, have to flow out of servant leaders. And to the extent they don't, your organization is going to walk with a limp. Mine has, because mine's got a problem. The problem with my organization is its leader. I'm the problem. It's limited by me. And to the extent I'm not growing and getting better every year, is to the extent we're not going to get big enough to help somebody somewhere that's hurting. That's a burden on me. I have a mandate as a leader to grow in quality, in character, in emotion, in my spiritual walk, in my intellectual play. I've got an obligation. I can't serve well unless I do. It's that simple. For the sake of unity for the entire group, the leader must go to battle early and often with any of these enemies of unity. I've got one more little clip because this is such a beautiful clip. Not only is it a true story, but you ought to get the movie and watch it. It's called Coach Carter. But this guy, he absolutely creates unity and creates camaraderie and causes his guys to step together in a way that's powerful. I just love this. Give it a watch.
You can play on this team. You owe me 2,500 push-ups and 1,000 suicides.
Damn.
Oh, and they must be completed by Friday.
He ain't finishing that by Friday. He ain't making that.
Bring it in, guys. Come on, go, hustle up. Yo, bring it in, y'all. Hustle up. All right, that's it for today. We have a game tomorrow, so get some rest tonight. Clyde. Mr. Cruz, I'm impressed with what you've done, but you came up short. You owe me 80 suicides and 500 push-ups. Please leave my gym. Thanks, Clyde. Gentlemen, see you tomorrow.
I'll do push-ups for him. You said we're a team. One person struggles and we all struggle. One player triumphs, we all triumph, right? I'll do some. I'll run suicides too.
People are led well. They unify. They pull together. They'll fight for each other. They'll carry each other. When unity is valued in the culture, the team acts to keep the enemies from the gate. We talk about these things out loud. Unresolved disagreements are unacceptable. When we're going through the interview process and bringing someone on board, I noticed one of the gentlemen up here mentioned it this morning. It was Patrick. He talked about his wife was a psychologist, or was it? It was Bill, wasn't it? Or the other guy. Anyway, he said his wife was a psychologist. I can't remember his name. Can't remember what happened. I just remember because I keyed in on it because we were talking, because I was thinking we do that. And what I figured out was this. When I went broke, my wife didn't know what was going on. I was over here doing the business thing. She was, changing diapers. And she's like Southern Belle, whatever you want to do, honey. And I did. And I ran the thing in a ditch. And I borrowed too much money and I lost my tail in it. It was all my fault. And, I blamed the banks and everybody else for a while, but it was my fault. I'm the idiot signed up for the trip, and I got to take it. So out of that, though, I learned. And then I'm reading, and I found a financial principle in Proverbs. It says, who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband safely trusts her, and he will have no lack of gain. You got a virtuous wife, you need to be listening to her. So we interview spouses, too. Because I figured out a long time ago, if your spouse is crazy, you're worthless as an employee. And I try to spot that before you're on my team. And let y'all go be crazy somewhere else, That's a good thing. Because you've interviewed some wonderful people, and then you figure out, well, this guy has he has nothing left. She rips his backbone out every morning before he leaves and gives it back to him when he gets home at night. And or vice versa, instead of telling him how great he is or telling her how great she is and that kind of a thing. And that matters a lot. So we involve the spouses in the interview process, and we tell them, our door's open. If there's a problem, he comes home, she comes home 3 nights in a row griping about the same problem, you tell them to get in somebody's office, and one of us will deal with it. We are leadership of action. We do resolve the disagreements. We do face these things down. We're not going to tolerate this stuff because we got to win. It matters too much. It matters too much that your church evangelizes your whole community, and it can't do it while you're dealing with all this internal stuff. You got to have good communication. No tolerance for gossip. Unresolved disagreements have to be fixed. Lack of shared purpose. The only way to fix that shared purpose, put the ball across the line. Communicate that real clearly, and don't sanction incompetence except in the event of personal problems where you're extending grace. And even then, there's a time that folks have to bring that in within reason that's good for them. You love them well while they're hurting, though, leaders. Love them well while they're hurting. It was fun to be with y'all. Thanks for having me.